This is Optimal Living Daily, episode 267, 3 Ways You're Making Your Life Harder Than It Has to Be, Part 2, by Marc Chernoff of marcandangel.com.
Get ready to maximize your potential with Optimal Living Daily, the podcast that brings you the best in personal development and productivity every day of the week. Your optimal life awaits. Now here's your host, Justin Malik.
Hello, and welcome to the Optimal Living Daily podcast, the podcast where I get permission from authors of some of the best blogs on the planet and read them to you, all for free. I'm Justin Malik, your very own personal narrator. Now today's episode is a continuation from yesterday. It's a longer post from Marc and Angel, and I like to keep these episodes under 10 minutes if possible. Sometimes all the way down to like 5 or 6 minutes, but usually in the middle, like 8-ish minutes. So I often break up longer posts, and if you're new here, you'll probably want to hear yesterday's episode 266, first, so that this makes a lot more sense. And with that, let's jump right in and start optimizing your life. 3 Ways You're Making Your Life Harder Than It Has to Be, Part 2, by Marc Chernoff of marcandangel.com. Number 2, you give up too soon when you realize things aren't as easy as you expected. This is the flip side of the previous point. But again, expectations are getting in the way. The best things in life don't always come easy. Some level of difficulty is necessary. Avoiding this truth just makes the hard things harder. Deep down you know this is true, and yet you've entered a new endeavor with the expectation that it'll be amazing and you'll do it with ease. And when it's inevitably harder than you thought it would be, and you're less successful at it than you expected, you're disappointed and discouraged. So you lose motivation and give up. Now imagine you let go of the fantasy of how this endeavor will go, and you're simply open to what emerges. You can just do it without worrying about the outcome. You can simply be in the moment with it. Then no matter how it turns out on the first try, you'll learn what you need to know. Bottom line, there are no shortcuts to any place worth going. Reality always rears its head in the end. And the truth about how ordinary people achieve immense happiness and incredible feats of success is that they step out of their comfort zones and do the hard things that their more educated, affluent, and qualified counterparts don't have the courage, drive, or determination to do. So for your own sake, stop expecting everything to be easy and start doing the necessary hard things today with an open mind. I guarantee you'll be blown away at just how remarkable you really are and just how fast you can grow. Number 3, people hurt you because they don't behave the way you expected. This woman at work is driving you crazy because she's not doing her work the way she should, or maybe she's being inconsiderate somehow. Your irritation stems from an expectation of how this woman should act. She isn't acting according to this ideal in your mind, and so you suffer because of it. It's time to put aside this expectation that people will live up to your ideals and just be open to them. They'll behave imperfectly, just as you will. Of course, accepting people as they are doesn't mean you do nothing. You can let go of the irritation and see how they're having difficulty and use it as a teaching opportunity, or an opportunity to help them, or to take the next logical step, with no expectation that they'll love your lesson or follow it, but just with the intention of helping someone and being proactive. And when your children behave badly, it's the same problem. They aren't behaving according to your ideal. Of course they're not. No child behaves ideally, just as no adult does. Do you behave ideally? I don't. I'm cranky and impolite when I'm tired. I'm not proud of this, but I struggle to be cheerful and considerate sometimes. Everybody does. Your children are struggling, and you can be compassionate and help them. That is, if you can let go of your expectations that they'll behave ideally and accept them as imperfectly beautiful beings who just want to be happy like you. Yes, it may be hard to admit, but most of the problems we have with others doesn't really have much to do with them at all. Many of the problems we think we have with them, we subconsciously created in our own mind. Maybe they did something that touched on one of our fears or insecurities, or maybe they didn't do something that we expected them to do. In any case, problems like these are not about the other person. They're about us, and that's okay. It simply means these little predicaments will be easier to solve. We are, after all, in charge of our own decisions. We get to decide whether we want to keep our head cluttered with stressful expectations, or instead open our minds to the positive realities unfolding in front of us. All we need is the willingness to look at things a little differently, letting go of what should be, and instead focusing our energy on loving what is. Angel and I discuss this in more detail in the happiness and simplicity chapters of 1000 Little Things Happy, Successful People Do Differently. Afterthoughts. Honestly, life is too short to spend at war with yourself. The biggest disappointments in our lives are often the result of misplaced expectations. Letting go of needless expectations is your first step to happiness. Come from a mindset of peace and acceptance. You can deal with almost anything and grow beyond it. Mastering the art of making life easier is not as easy as you'd expect or fantasize. It takes practice. It means learning to be mindful of when you have these expectations, ideals, and harmful fantasies. It means learning to see the irritations, anger, sadness, anxieties, and mood swings as signals of the expectations you have and didn't notice. And it means letting them go. Again, this takes a lot of practice, but that's the joy of it. You drop the expectation that you'll be perfect at this practice, and you just try it. You learn from the trying. You grow and improve gradually, step by step. And each moment along the way is a miracle to be noticed, appreciated, and enjoyed. You just listened to part 2 of the post titled 3 Ways You're Making Your Life Harder Than It Has to Be by Marc Chernoff of marcandangel.com. Now, I occasionally ask listeners of the show what they're struggling with and also give some life tips and quotes and free spreadsheets on personal finance, retirement planning, task prioritization, and more in a short weekly email. If you want to be a part of that and show some support in the process, you can join for free by visiting oldpodcast.com, or for a faster way to join, you can text the word optimal to the number 44222. Again, totally free, and it's a really nice way to show that you like what you hear. And I'll leave it at that. I hope you're having a great weekend, and I'll see you in 24 hours, where your optimal life awaits.
Hey, this is Dan from the Optimal Finance Daily podcast, which is a lot like this show, except more focused on personal finance. Justin handpicks the best posts he can find from blogs and authors like Ramit Sethi, Mr. Money Mustache, and more, and I read them to you 5 days a week. So if you enjoy this podcast, come on over and subscribe to Optimal Finance Daily too. And together, we'll optimize your financial life.
You've been listening to Optimal Living Daily. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on each new episode, and head to oldpodcast.com. That's OLDpodcast.com for a free gift, as well as more actionable tips and resources to help you maximize your potential. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your optimal life awaits.